Hello and welcome to another episode of Spotlight, where we aim to meet a local youth leader and find out something of their ministry with young people. Today we're joined by Lindsey Taylor. Lindsey is a chaplain at a Lifehouse called Ripton Court, and we welcome her now. Hi Lindsey.
Hello Matt, good to be here.
Thank you for joining us. Lindsey, before we get to hear about your work with young people in Ripton Court, let's find out a bit about you. So we're going to do that through My Life in Pictures. So the first picture I can see is telling us a bit about you and your family.
Well, I live on my own. I don't have any children of my own. So my family are, my immediate family are my parents and my sister. They all live in the Midlands. So I think the picture you have, we don't take good pictures. I have to caveat with that. So I think this was a Platinum Jubilee weekend where they came to visit me.
What is fascinating, even just a few years on, is looking back at photos from the pandemic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of you in your separate areas. There's someone there with a mask on. You're in the cinema. We don't really do that now, do we? But yeah, it's fascinating to look back on that already. The second photo is of your role.
It was quite difficult to sort of get an image of what my role and our work involves just in one image, because it's very varied. But this was we took a group of our young people to the football event that was run by the Salvation Army's Homelessness Services, the Partnership Trophy up in Manchester. So my friend jokingly got me the armbands because I was the manager, but ended up being player manager. And we didn't come away with any silverware, surprisingly. But we did come away having a good day.
So it's the, I guess, the joining in that counts, right?
Exactly that. Very much so in every sense.
Thank you. And then this last photo, it looks like you stood just outside of a lake looking very warm, and probably the biggest bobble on a bobble hat I've ever seen. Yeah,
well, it's from the big bobble hat company. So yeah.
Oh, really?
It wasn't very warm at all. So that's quite recent. That's New Year's Day. I love swimming. I love the outdoors. So I'm quite into my outdoor swimming. So that was New Year's Day. Me and my sister took a dip in the local reservoir. I think it was about 5 degrees. Wow. So yeah, that's the after.
That's pretty crazy.
It is. So I won't be returning, I don't think, until it warms up a little bit. But we're quite fortunate here where I live. I'm on the doorstep of the river. So come the summer, I'll be in the water one way or another, whether that's swimming or on the paddleboard. So
wow, you're braver than me. Tell us more about your ministry with those young people in that setting.
Well, I'm an officer, so fortunately this is my appointment and I'm there full time. In a little place called Huntingdon, which is kind of between Peterborough and Cambridge, in one of our life houses for young people, as you say. Lifehouse, for those of you that might not be familiar with that term, it's essentially a hostel. So we're supported housing for young people aged between 16 and 25. So looking towards getting them to a place of independent living. So as they move on from us and our services, that's the end goal, really. That's the priority. But with that comes a lot more support and activity and program that they're involved in as well. So the term Lifehouse is meant to be more than just a place to stay. So there's supportive structures within that as well. So we have support worker teams that work alongside them. We do things like life skills, from the very practical things about how to look after your home and budgeting and healthy eating, to more sort of relational things like communication and those kind of things. So
brilliant. So Lindsey, your role is the chaplain.
It is.
Tell us more about what that involves. And I'm assuming that you're not just the chaplain to those young people, but also the staff that are a part.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. So I mean, we have a brief of appointment as a chaplain, but essentially I'm their responsibility for the pastoral and the spiritual aspects and needs of the centre. And as you say rightly, it's not only to the residents that we have, but the staff team as well. So we have, as I say, we've got probably about 20 staff, and that ranges from your cleaner and maintenance man to support team, to the managers, to the night concierge. So yeah, all working at different times of the day in different places and different roles.
Sure, that's great, Lindsey. We often see youth ministry and youth work possibly being on a Sunday morning with young people who come into our church buildings. But what's great about interviewing you, Lindsey, is that what we're hearing is that the Salvation Army is in so many different spaces, in so many different contexts, serving young people outside of the church who've actually really fallen on very hard times at such a young age. How do young people get referred, and what are some of the situations they find themselves in at such a young age?
It varies, and as you say, at the age of 16, certainly growing up, I wasn't in that kind of position where I had to worry about where I was going to live. But they come to us through the local authority predominantly, and for any number of reasons. It could be that there's been family breakdowns and relationship breakdowns, so they're struggling to live in that home environment. So just a bit of space between them and their family is helpful. We've got quite a number of care leavers that come to us as well. So they've been within the care system, and again, it's that next stage towards independence. We have some who have just fell on hard times, certainly between sort of around COVID, you mentioned, that some have just lost their job and fallen on hard times and just need that kind of space and that extra little bit of support to get them back on their feet, because of the jobs that they had during that time. We have some that come from prison directly to us, so that's part of their licence with either probation or the youth offending service. Again, kind of just having that extra support for them, and wraparound care really. So yeah, any number of reasons that they come to us.
And you've spoken about some of the life skills that you get alongside them with, and try to implement in their lives to help them set up really and be resilient as they move out. How long are they generally with you for? And is there some sort of program you do follow?
Ideally, the time that they're with us is sort of between 18 months to 2 years,
right,
that they can progress. And part of that is, if they come to us at 16, they can't have their own tenancy before they're 18. So there's that kind of window of opportunity there to work with them. So when they do turn 18, they're in that position. And as you say, we do life skills with them, which can be very practical. So around budgeting, move on and tenancy when they're nearer that time. So that's very much structured around kind of their journey. So they'll look at, when they first come with us, it's about, the basics, so about their license agreement with us, and then how to look after their home and budgeting and money and shopping on a budget and those kind of things. And then as they're nearer that place where we're able to nominate them for their own tenancy, it's things like the move on and tenancy. So that kind of journeys with them as to where they're at in that point of development. Then the support staff team help them with different things. So, if they're on benefits, of helping them with applications with that. We do have some that are within education and training and trying to get them volunteer opportunities as well and things like that. So yeah, that's the ideal, and that's the journey that they go through. Some successfully, some need a little bit more support. As I say, they've got very complex needs when they come to us because of the situations and experiences that they've had growing up. So, there's a lot of mental health issues. Part of my role as chaplain is obviously pastoral support and dealing with those crisis moments. So that can be anything from relationship breakdown. Bereavement support's a massive one as well, surprisingly. Self-harm, things like that. So all these extra needs as well as for the very practical stuff. So working with a lot of external agencies.
Sure. And what I think we need to be mindful of is that so many young people, whether they have a home or not, have some of these big crisis points. They're dealing with adverse childhood experiences. But on top of all of those challenges and issues that so many young people face with their mental health, they're also homeless. And you're providing them a roof over their heads. But not just that, you're actually journeying with them and building them up. And so many life skills are learned in space. I'm sure it's incredibly challenging. But I wonder if you have certain points of your role that bring you just real fulfillment and joy as you journey with those young people.
It is very challenging where we are, and sometimes it feels like, where is the joy in this? Where is the hope in this? But I think for us, it's that kind of, we see little wins as massive steps, people. So we certainly, I use the example of one of our young people. They're on the autistic spectrum. When they came to us, even at interview, they wouldn't acknowledge us, wouldn't look at the person. They were sort of in the corner during the whole interview. and they're just getting more and more confident in themselves down the line. Was playing pool with them the other day, and we had some strangers, some visitors come to the centre, another young person with their social worker waiting for her interview, and we were in the social lounge area that we have, playing pool. Now normally he would bolt at that moment, but yeah, he's still there and still engaged, and acknowledge that presence. So yeah, what seems like a really little insignificant thing for him is huge. Is huge. So yeah, it's just noticing those little wow moments. Yeah.
Right. You as the chaplain hold a very different position, and your position is not just to journey and be in relationship with those young people, but there's also to bring the Christian faith into that place, and to enter into maybe spiritual conversations or guidance. How does that play out in the life of a Lifehouse?
For me, there's a real kind of distinction between religion and faith. And my focus is on faith. You know, I practice a religion, I have my own faith, and that's the only story that I can share, really, is my perspective. So as chaplain and having that responsibility for the spiritual life of the centre, I think it's just about offering opportunities to explore faith and what that means for somebody individually. And that seems a very broad term, and it may be, because we have had residents that practice other faiths. So again, my role as chaplain, it might be quite practical in linking them with a faith community when they come to us, if that's something that's important to them, or conscious of cultural issues. So, you know, we've had a young man once that was practicing Muslim. So, you know, linking him with the local imam and finding him halal butcher and things like that were really important.
Right. Sure.
But yeah, broadly speaking, it's about offering an opportunity to explore faith, and that's around conversation, that's around, you know, specific questions. We introduce moments of prayer is really important, you know, and I pray regularly with the management team, and we have what we call a mission support group, which is local core representatives as well as DHQ and our regional team, speaking to that as well. So offering opportunity for prayer and worship at a very gentle level, introductory level, but it just opens those conversations, which is really important. And it's in those conversations that I think those matters of spirituality really emerge. And how does faith resonate with real life? Yeah.
And the opportunity there to live out your faith day to day with those young people, right?
Yeah, and I guess it's providing those role models that they may not necessarily have.
That's brilliant, Lindsey. And Lindsey, you spoke earlier that generally a young person will probably be with you between sort of 18 months to 2 years. I think what people will be wanting to know is, you know, what happens once they leave you. Now, I know you're trying to build them up to a place of independence where they'll hopefully move to a set, they'll live independently. Tell us what is that next, and what is the support surrounding that for that individual who's gone from a place where they're surrounded by so many people caring for them in a program to then suddenly possibly quite isolated.
And some are ready for that, some are not so ready for that.
Right.
So the idea at the end of it is to work them towards a place of independent living where we can nominate them to the local authority to say, yep, they're a good tenant. And there is possibility for there. So again, it's getting to that place where, you know, they can pay their bills, they can look after their home, they know what it is to be a good neighbour, and those kind of things. But yeah, it's having that floating support ideally is probably where there's a bit of a gap in the system, and we do try to link them with local agencies, but yeah, we're quite under pressure that's not necessarily something we can provide long term.
Sure.
It is something we're looking at, but yeah, we're quite restricted with budget and things like that. So
yeah, I think what sort of came to my mind is that there are a number of Lifehouses across the UK and Ireland, a number of them for adults, but there are a few dotted around for young people. And as a church, as a Salvation Army, you will have local core nearby, or at least a short drive away. How do you think local core can be, first of all, more aware of the role of Lifehouses, but also join in? And you talk about some gaps. How can we fill some of those gaps?
Yeah, we're in a position in Huntingdon where there isn't a core in our local vicinity. So the nearest core is a good sort of half an hour drive away, which isn't impossible. We do have a very good mission support group, which is comprised of local core, as well as DHQ staff that speak into it and look at the plans that we've got and review that and how they can support us. So they're very, very supportive to us in a number of ways. So that's practically, prayerfully, you know, they provide gifts for us that we can give to the young people at Christmas and Easter eggs and those kind of things. Food is really important, isn't it? But yeah, and just having that interest in the young people, they provide, you know, they come and facilitate barbecues for us in the summer, and just gift us and bless us in that way. But also I think part of a chaplain's role is to get out there and spread that message. So get in touch with your local chaplain, get in touch with your centre manager and ask that question. You know, I'm more than happy to go across and do coffee mornings or cameo groups or anything that's going on in the local quarter to share something of what we're doing. It might be that you have a particular skill set or gifting that could be really useful at the centre. And before my time, there was a group of little old ladies. They're always little old ladies, aren't they? That used to come and teach sewing. And that's not necessarily something you would connect to youth work, but it works, you know. So yeah, if you've got a particular gifts, skill set, you know, that can maybe be incorporated as part of the activity and the programme at the centre, just drop your chaplain line or your centre manager.
That's
sure to have that conversation.
That's really important, isn't it? And I think if what you've said encouraged or inspired someone, talk to your CO and find out where your local Lifehouse is. And as you say, we've all got skills, haven't we, that would, you know, be eaten up by that Lifehouse and young people can learn from, even if it is sewing. But actually, I think more important than that, if you've got time, how can you give your time? Yeah.
I think it is important to just state you probably can't just rock up to a centre because it is their home. So consistency is key as well. So again, just have those conversations with your centre, with the service manager, with your chaplain. I
wonder if you could tell us what you've learned from your time as being a chaplain in Ripton Court, or what you might be learning.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say we learn something new every day, and whether that be a particular phrase or things like that. With young people, they educate you in so many ways. But I think for me, one of the challenges is, by nature, I'm a fixer. I'm solution focused, and that doesn't always work in this environment. I'm conscious that my youth work is quite unique in that it's very incarnational, you know, whereas most youth work settings, you've only got them sort of an hour or two a week. We have them 24/7. So, you know, it's the good, the bad and the ugly. So I think one of the challenges is, you know, as I'm trying to support them, that I do just that and support them in the best way possible. So every conversation, every, you know, interaction that I go into, it's a question that I either ask myself or it's that silent prayer, or I might even ask it out loud. Are they wanting comfort here, or are they wanting intervention? Are they just wanting somebody to listen, or are they need seeking advice here? So it's just being mindful of my responses to that, and that's something I'm continuously learning. And my prayer is very often for me to just get out of the way and let God do his thing. You know, in and through me. But yeah, so I think it's just being mindful of, what are they needing from me in this moment?
Thank you so much, Lindsey, for your time. And if people want to hear more about their Lifehouses, they can get in touch, as you say, with the chaplains there.
Yeah, with the chaplain if they've got one, or your service manager.
Brilliant. We want to thank you, Lindsey, for being a part of this interview today. I'm sure we've all been blessed with what Lindsey's had to say and had a real insight into the life of youth ministry across the Salvation Army in so many different contexts that we might not have been aware of before. Please pray for Lindsey and her ministry, but also pray for our Lifehouses generally across the UK and Ireland and the great work they do with young people and adults at a real crisis point in their lives. Please join us next time for another episode of Spotlight, where we'll get to meet another local youth minister doing fantastic work with young people.